Midnight lingered in the narrow canyons of downtown Portland, Oregon, the hour when office tower windows surrendered their final flickers and delivery trucks rolled iron sighs through lamp-lit streets. It was February's last Sunday, a stretch of deep winter that left frost lace on bike seats and turned manhole vapor into slow ghosts drifting over asphalt. In a converted garment factory loft on the corner of Alder and 9th, a newly adopted blue brindle Pitbull named Rook raised his head from a second-hand corduroy sofa. His ears pricked. His amber eyes tracked shadows cast by neon signage that bled pale magenta through floor-to-ceiling panes. Outside, an electric blue marquee still hummed the words Fiction Theater. But the final patrons had disappeared hours earlier, and rain had begun needling the sidewalks with gentle persistence. Rook had spent the first 4 years of his life in the back lot of a defunct auto parts yard 40 miles east. Chained to a cinder block, surviving on thaw-freeze puddles and whatever leftovers a night watchman remembered to toss. Freedom came abruptly when a county welfare officer, investigating code violations, found the skeletal dog gnawing the chain itself. Rook's rescue photo, sharp cheekbones, eyes wide under winter starlight, went viral for exactly 48 hours. Enough time for Harper Kincaid to see the post between brushstrokes and tea refills. Harper was a multi-medium artist whose studio home occupied half the 8th floor of the old factory. A labyrinth of scarred wooden planks, canvases propped like sleepy giants, and milky skylights that caught any scrap of daylight the Pacific Northwest grudgingly offered. Harper's work had no predictable form, charcoal portraits that seemed to breathe. 3-story fabric sculptures suspended from ceiling beams. Immersive projections that folded viewers into dreamscapes of color and light. What the pieces shared was a vein of raw empathy, an obsession with small overlooked stories. Rook's image stabbed straight into that vein. It took weeks of shelter paperwork and court testimony against the yard's former owner before Harper could bring the dog home. By then, Rook was 30 pounds heavier, coat thick with navy steel sheen. Yet he still tracked Harper's movements with a sentinel's vigilance, especially at night, when city hush pressed against the loft's big panes like a held breath. Tonight the hush tasted wrong. A filament bulb on Harper's drafting table cast soft gold across graphite sketches. Harper lay nearby, slumped beneath a patchwork quilt, orange-tipped dreadlocks splaying across a futon, laptop still open on a paused reference video. The furnace ticked its usual metallic rhythm, but Rook ignored familiar sounds. Nostrils widening, something sweet yet sour hung at the edge of perception, drifting between the smell of linseed oil and the faint mildew of ancient brick. Propane carried no odor naturally, but utility companies add mercaptan, a sulfur-based compound that reeks of rotten eggs. To most human noses it registers abruptly, an insult. Unmistakable. For canine olfaction scaled 100-fold beyond ours. Mercaptan arrives in microscopic murmurs. Rook slid from the sofa, claws clicking across hardwood. He nosed the baseboard heater, the fuse box, the bouquet of solvent jars clustered near an easel. The scent grew stronger at the corridor leading to the kitchen alcove. A nook carved from original loading dock timber, still crowned by iron pulleys that once hoisted crates of wool and silk. Here, exposed copper piping fed a retro cast iron stove Harper picked from a second-hand shop less for function than its robin egg enamel and curlicue door vents. A single burner's control knob sat half-cocked, glimmering with condensation. Beneath, ancient threading quivered with the subtlest breath of gas escaping under full city pressure. Each molecule sped into the loft's cathedral ceilings, layering like invisible silk. Rook's lips curled. A low growl stirred in his chest. Not anger but urgency. He trotted back, shoved his snout under Harper's elbow, wedging until the artist stirred. "Buddy, what?" Harper mumbled, voice hoarse from hours of caffeine and charcoal dust. Rook whined, pivoted, trotted a few paces, looked back. Harper rubbed sleep-sticky eyes. "Walk? It's pouring. Dude," Rook barked, one sharp note rarely used. It ricocheted off brick. Harper's eyebrows pinched. Rook tried again, pawing the quilt, then bolted to the kitchen doorway. Claws skittering, Harper swung legs off the futon, the chill of the floor chasing away last wisps of doze. As they neared the alcove, the scent hit, diluted by hours in the open loft yet unmistakable. Harper's pulse spiked. Training videos they'd watched after adoption flickered through Harper's head. Evacuate. Don't switch lights. Don't create sparks. But instincts tangled. Should the stove knob be turned fully off? Could that spark? Rook pressed flank to Harper's knees. Hurting backward, Harper grabbed phone and keys from a milk crate nightstand. Then snatched Rook's reflective leash even as the dog aimed for the stairwell door already. The hallway outside smelled normal. But Harper's heart punched like a misfiring piston. They pounded down 8 flights. Footsteps echoing with siren urgency in stairwell concrete. On the ground floor the night security guard, Janelle Reyes, looked up from a crime novel. Startled by the sprinting duo, Harper blurted the word gas. Voice cracking. Janelle abandoned the desk. Fire drill training overriding confusion. She keyed her radio, dialing the county dispatch channel. Rain greeted them like broken glass when they exited onto 9th. Wind funneling between high rises. Harper dragged air into trembling lungs. Rook vibrating at the leash's end but not from fear. His head swung to the lobby doors. Ears pinned. Harper thought briefly of laptops. Canvases. Everything left behind. Then dismissed them, worthless stacked against combustion. Fire Station 7 sat 4 blocks south. Its brick facade older than the loft itself. The call reached Battalion Chief Monica Alsop 2 minutes after Harper and Rook hit the sidewalk. Alsop heard, possible propane leak. Multi-unit loft building. Potential mass casualty. And within 60 seconds engine 4 and ladder 2 roared onto Alder. Tires spewing rooster tails. Traffic lights glowed slick chartreuse in rain haze as rigs braked hard outside the converted factory. Alsop's crew donned SCBA masks while paramedics herded bleary tenants Harper had triggered via building intercom. Sleep-rumpled artists, freelance coders, and a pair of college students huddled beside planters, clutching terriers and laptops, breath pluming under sodium arcs. Harper pointed out the 8th floor windows where pendant bulbs still glimmered. Alsop sent 2 firefighters up with a multi-gas detector, an orange brick-like meter clipped to turn out codes. Harper tried to accompany them. Alsop barred the way. Protocol. Stay clear. Rook strained at the leash. Guttural whine thrumming as the crew disappeared into stair shadows. Minutes sagged. Water pooled at Harper's collarbones. Hair plastered cold across cheeks. In the distance, siren Dopplers announced Hazmat Team 12. Alsop's radio crackled. Elevated propane. Lel reading 45% and climbing. Harper knew little about explosion science. But the grim tilt of Alsop's posture translated enough. Lower explosive limit. Anything above 10% spelled fireworks given a spark. Inside, thermal cameras traced plumes invisible to human sight. A ghost tide curling along rafters. When firefighters reached the kitchen alcove, the leak source glowed like a white hot wire in their viewfinders. Tendrils snaking outward, they snapped valves shut with gloved hands. Radioed for gas utility cut off at street. Downstairs, hazmat techs unfurled yellow tape. Rerouted foot traffic half a block. EMS evaluated residents for inhalation. Pulses ran high but symptoms minimal. Harper clasped Rook's soaked ruff as though the dog were a rock mooring them to the moment. A Fox 12 News van skidded curbside. Camera lighting up raindrops like sparks. Harboring equal parts dread and relief. Harper recounted the dog's behavior for the reporter. Voice echoing through plastic ponchos and satellite dishes. By sunrise, utility crews replaced the kinked copper section. Metal fatigue accelerated by decades of vibration from freight trains beneath city streets. Chief Alsop addressed gathered tenants in a lobby now smelling of coffee and fear's aftertaste. "Your building's clear," she said, "and you owe that fact to a dog who refused to stay quiet." Applause rippled, hesitant then insistent. Rook wagged once, modest as moonlight. Back in the loft, windows gaped open, exhaust fans droned, and every canvas wore beads of condensation. Harper spread towels over hardwood warping slightly from rain tracked in by firefighter boots. At Rook's insistence, they stoked the furnace and nested under blankets on the sofa. The dog's head heavy on Harper's thigh while coffee percolated in a French press salvaged from sink water. Exhaustion arrived late, hammering after adrenaline ebbed, but Harper resisted sleep, studying Rook's steady breathing. The chest that had once been ribs splayed like a birdcage. Gratitude blurred edges of vision. Afternoon light leaked through storm clouds. Bronzing brick walls. Harper opened a sketchbook. Charcoal sliding across toothy paper. Lines emerged. Rook poised a doorway. Ears high. Darkness behind him like an ink tide. In margins Harper scribbled phrases for a possible installation piece, olfactory alarm. Tangle of copper pipes suspending scented vapor that visitors must navigate guided by canine frequency flashes. Rook shifted, nose twitching at charcoal dust. Harper laughed softly. Okay, break time. The knock arrived at sundown. Chief Alsop and 2 crew members stood flanked by a local magazine photographer. They carried a certificate, a crimson collar medallion etched with Portland Fire and Rescue honor and a braided rope toy-colored engine red. Alsop crouched, presenting the medal palm up. Rook sniffed, then allowed her to buckle it beside his standard ID tag. Camera shutters sang. Harper's grin cracked aching cheeks. Tears sprang anyway. The city's story cycles might have ended there. A viral clip of a rescue dog saving an artsy neighborhood. Heart emojis cascading, but long after views plateaued. Deeper ripples spread. A week later Dr. Mava Lin, neuroscientist at OSU, emailed Harper requesting collaboration. Her lab studied canines' superior olfactory circuits using safe odorant challenges inside immersive enclosures. Would Harper design the enclosures, make scientific testing less sterile? More dog-centric? Compensation robust. Rook would serve as a pilot subject. Earning treats and mental stimulation. Harper agreed, intrigued by marrying art and neuroscience. They drove south on a drizzle-slicked Tuesday. Rook perched in the hatchback's custom bed, nose pressed to cracked window. At OSU's olfaction lab, shade cloth tunnels, soft LED gradients, and sound-dampening fabric sculptures replaced harsh kennel runs once used for trials. The redesign calmed dogs, lowered cortisol measures, data quality soared. Dr. Lin's graduate paper credited bioimmersive aesthetics, conceived by Harper Kincaid. But reviewers highlighted Rook, Subject 01, whose ability to detect parts per billion mercaptan thresholds skirted physiological records. Grants multiplied, months turned. Harper and Rook split weeks between Portland and Corvallis. River bloom and campus crispness. They spent evenings at coffeehouses where students debated neural net poetry under Edison bulbs. Rook curled beneath wooden benches, head occasionally lifting when acoustic guitars trembled wrong-scented cables. Harper sketched murals onto legal pads, branching copper pipes leaking colors instead of gas, indigo, crimson, viridian, each hue and odor Rook could parse. Galleries called, commissions queued, yet Harper's heart circled back to one memory. Midnight mercaptan. Dog insistence. Life in the balance. One autumn, the Museum of Science and Industry offered its central atrium for a kinetic installation merging smell, light, and sound. Harper built an undulating forest of translucent silicone leaves filled with inert aromatic compounds representing dangerous household gases. Visitors donned wearable sensors. Invisible plumes triggered soft chimes, guiding them toward safe exits mapped by canine statues cast in bronze. Beside each statue, an inscription, "Trust the unseen warnings." Opening night crowds drifted in, children followed scent trails giggling. Adults whispered about how they'd once ignored faint gas odors. A TV station streamed a live segment. The anchor lost words entering the haze of simulated mercaptan until a bronze Rook gleamed light onto her path. While the exhibit toured West Coast cities, real-life Rook volunteered at the fire department's public safety workshops. Kids took turns hiding scented leak canisters. Rook located them in seconds. Firefighters explained evacuation drills. Parents filmed on phones as the dog pawed a floor marker then sprinted to a mock exit. Tail flagging instruction passed language barriers. Harper's story proposals grew bigger, an outdoor spectacle where drones carried scent diffusers across a waterfront park. Mapping an olfactory aurora only dogs understood. Sponsors balked at logistics. Harper shrugged. Art was patience layered on stubbornness. Meanwhile, OSU trials deepened. Imaging revealed Rook's olfactory bulb firing in complex constellations when presented with minute chemical variations. Dr. Lin's team published in Nature Neuroscience, The media fixated on the gas guardian Pitbull. Back in the loft, winter returned. Gentler maybe because the building now boasted upgraded appliances and digital gas sensors blinking green near each stove. One wind-scoured night Harper brewed peppermint cocoa while Rook sprawled before the heater. Phone buzzed. Unknown caller. Harper answered to a voice gravelly with smoke exposure, Battalion Chief Alsop. A gas line rupture in an electrical substation near the Pearl District had sparked a 3-alarm blaze. Officials struggled to chart vapor flow beneath city grates. Alsop needed real-world noses plus OSU's nascent AI sniffer tech. Could Harper and Rook join the command post? That invitation detonates the next spiral of events, rooftop rescues, an AI-assisted scent mapping drone swarm, and the ethical debate of using dogs in industrial zones. But those threads weave onward beyond a single chronicle. What remains essential tonight is the moment Rook pushed his snout against a sleeping artist's arm and refused to settle. Out of that small act tinnitus of destiny rang half a city awake. Redirected scientific funding, and gifted strangers future breadth of breath. Somewhere below the loft windows, traffic murmurs grew as bars emptied. Taxis hissed past puddles. Harper set down sketchbook, scratched behind Rook's ears. You smell snow coming, don't you? Rain had ceased, and air now tasted metallic, promising flurries. Rook's tail thumped agreement. They crossed to the giant panes. Far behind Portland's South rail yards, a patch of sky glowed faint aurora green from industrial lights refracted by ice crystals. Harper exhaled a vow shaped in steam on the glass. More people would hear this story. Feel it, maybe check their own stoves. Trust their own dogs. Rook leaned into Harper's hip, eyes tracking invisible currents only he perceived. Sentinel posture easy yet alert. Forever translating the unseen language of danger into the human heart's unmistakable call to act. Deep under Portland's Pearl District, a capillary network of vintage steel gas mains threaded between parking garage bowels, subway service tunnels, and storm-drained catacombs no city planner still alive could fully map. Decades of micro-quakes and heavy rail vibrations had loosened joints the width of nickels. But on most nights that vulnerability slept, masked by low-pressure flow and the forgiving space of dry soil. On this particular night, early March, moon swollen and hid behind marine clouds, an electrical surge inside substation E7 spat sparks into a compressor housing. The arc flash lasted maybe a second, but the heat bloom warped adjacent conduit, shearing a 90-year-old pipe elbow like taffy. Natural gas hissed into the rainy dark. Invisible river washing along cable trays and sewer grates in search of an ignition whisper. Battalion Chief Monica Alsop felt rather than heard the rupture. The substation's transformer farm stood 7 blocks from Station 7, and when the grid hiccuped, fluorescent lights in the apparatus bay stuttered. Dispatch lines lit like Christmas. Calls from bicyclists who thought they smelled rotten eggs. From baristas closing late. From a security guard whose Canine wouldn't step off the curb outside a boutique hotel. The guard reported the dog whining. Claws dug into concrete. Gaze fixed south. Alsop's stomach dropped. 2 hours earlier she had tucked her own toddler into bed with stories of a heroic dog named Rook, lifting a plush husky puppet to mimic barks while her daughter giggled. Now the night itself seemed to bark an alarm. Engine 4, Ladder 2, and Hazmat 12 screamed up Lovejoy just as digital monitors in the Portland Bureau of Emergency Communications began stacking reports flagged gas odor, multiple. At the command trailer, technicians overlaid GPS coordinates into a pulsing heat map. The epicenter glowed crimson, the mouth of an alley flanked by breweries and galleries still humming with patrons. Utility crews attempted remote shutoff, but pressure gauges remained wild, a stuck valve somewhere upstream. They needed real-time plume mapping fast, before gas found a pilot flame from a water heater or the spark of a streetcar pantograph. Alsop scanned the resource board. The city owned 3 portable laser spectro imagers, but their range was limited. Refresh rate slower than the rising danger. An idea landed like a stone in her chest. Rook. She called Harper Kincaid at 12:16 a.m., voice brisk yet apologetic. Describing the leak, the pressure readings, the unknowns. Harper was still awake, varnishing a cedar frame while Rook snored beneath, hind leg twitching in dream pursuit. At the urgency in Alsop's tone, Harper's pulse accelerated to a rhythm reminiscent of Mercaptan Night. Rook's head jerked upright before the ringtone ended, as though sensing the tremor in Harper's body chemistry. 15 minutes later, Harper's Subaru spun onto Front Avenue. Hazard flashers slicing rain. Rook wore his crimson rescue medallion and a new reflective harness fitted with OSU's prototype olfactory telemetry pack, a fist-sized sensor array that sampled the air near his muzzle, running data through machine learning filters to pinpoint target compounds. Dr. Maeva Lin herself materialized from the passenger seat of a university van, clutching 2 more sniff packs and a ruggedized tablet for live mapping. Graduate students lugged Pelican cases filled with drone gear, quad rotors adapted to carry identical sensors. Benefiting from Canine-trained algorithms, command staff absorbed the entourage with a collective nod that said nothing matters except speed. Alsop briefed the mixed team under the trailer's sodium lamps as drizzle quickened to needle rain. Firefighters in bunker coats, university techs in puffer jackets, a lone artist in paint-flecked jeans, and one bristle-muscled Pitbull formed a half-circle. The plan: send Rook, tethered to firefighter handler Dennis Cole, down the primary alley while drones ghosted overhead. Relaying concentration gradients, software built by Lin's group would fuse canine sniff data with aerial samples, generating a 4D plume model updated every second, color-coded on Alsop's tablet. The team needed to identify the subterranean high-pressure pockets before gas reached saturation near street-level pilot sources, particularly the row of food cart kiosks where propane heaters flickered like votive candles. Cole knelt, clipping a fireline harness to Rook's chest while reciting calm affirmations. Rook's ears forward, nostrils fluttering fast. The dog remembered Mercaptan the way a composer holds a motif, intimate with every interval. Tonight's note was louder, thrumming through rainfall like off-key cello. They set off, Harper matching pace at Cole's far side, tablet in Dr. Lin's hands behind them. Rook's LED collar pulsed cyan, marking movement for aerial operators. 50 feet in, the sensor pack whirred. Lin's screen splashed a flaring yellow stream curling west with the wind, gas hugging the alley wall. Pooling behind dumpsters, Rook paused, head tilting, then veered left. Paws splashing through camellia petals plastered on asphalt. He nosed a hairline crack in the concrete, the sensor spiked orange. Data overlay showed 92 parts per million methane. Surface ascending. A manhole cover nearby rattled subtly, exhaling a teacher's pet swirl of vapor revealed only by FLIR cameras overhead. Cole radioed grid control. Utility techs sprang to isolate a secondary feeder main. But Lin's software flagged a deeper red plume migrating north toward the food cart court. Wind eddies funneling gas like river rapids around boulders. Drone 3 diverged, its sensor lighting crimson. Concentrations soared toward lower explosive limit. Alsop's voice snapped through radios, all cartridges off. Order food court evac now. Police bike patrol officers cut through crowds, shouting orders as cart owners killed burners. Eyelids huge with adrenaline. A college folk band packed ukuleles mid-chord, scattering screeching feedback. On the alley's far mouth, Rook lunged, nearly yanking Cole off balance, dragging handler to a corroded steel grate guarding a basement coal chute long since unused. Gas roiled upward here in shimmering sheets visible only to sensor arrays. Rook perceived taste. A bitter egg phantom coating tongue. Cole slammed a gloved fist against Alsop's radio channel. Primary vent located, basement coal chute. Heavy flow. Lin's model re-rendered. Crimson point blossom at chute. Plume tentacles reaching. Utility cutoff computations predicted 15 minutes before residual pressure dropped. Too long. Firefighters unreeled a large bore ventilation fan. But sparks inside brushless motors risked ignition. Alsop vetoed. They needed passive venting if ignition sources could be eliminated. She remembered the boutique hotel's diesel backup generator still humming on the next block, exhaust stack height near rooftop. If they rerouted flow with industrial ducting upward into the generator's intake snorkel, diesel-rich burn might harmlessly combust diluted methane at high elevation. Improvised. Yes. Possible? With 90 seconds to decide. Alsop dispatched Ladder 2 to reposition. Harper crouched beside Rook, palming the dog's chest as rain seeped between collar layers. "You did it again," Harper whispered. Rook panted, tongue lolling, but muscles quivered with residual urgency, job unfinished. He whipped around, nose high. Tablet chirped new alert. Residual plume not dropping, it split. Seeping Lovejoy sewer upwind toward an apartment building. Elevator motors, pilot lights, even cellars with old boilers there. "You want us to track?" Cole asked. Alsop nodded without words. They followed Rook along sidewalk seams now laced with shimmering oil slicks. Drone Force spotlight trailed overhead. Each droplet turned starburst. Rook halted at a storm drain rim corroded by decades of de-icing salt. The dog's hackles bristled, he backed away. Cole shone flashlight. Acid etched in rust. The hole gaped bigger than code allowed, entry point to old culverts. A faint flicker reflected off pooled water inside. Maybe a passing headlight. Maybe something worse. Suddenly, a distant concussive pop shook windows. Everyone flinched. Not an explosion. Utility reclosure event as breakers tripped again. But that micro-arc chewed spare nerves. Alsop's command. Foam blanket pre-emergent to blanket vapor near storm drains. Engine 4 deployed compressed air foam lines. Coating curb valleys in surf-white meringue. Sequestering pockets from ignition. Under Lynn's supervision, drones stitched new data. Plume thickness thinned. Cut-off valves finally bit. Pressure gauges drooped. At command trailer the crimson faded to orange. To yellow. To ghost traces. All clear echoed 45 minutes after Rook first tugged the leash. But still the team held perimeter for 2 hours. Letting fans coax last wisps skyward. At 3:04 a.m. Alsop gave formal stand down. Utility engineers shook hands with OSU researchers. The folk band resumed packing. Media clusters surged. Microphones dangling. Harper deflected spotlights, redirecting praise to first responders. Yet every lens sought Rook. Standing soaked but regal. Harness leads extinguished now, as though he understood the narrative required him to claim center. He accepted one reporter's scratched chin, then turned to nose Harper's trembling hand. Time to go home. In the following weeks the Gas Guardian 2.0 event magnified Rook's renown from local legend to national conversation. Morning talk shows broadcast drone footage overlays of plume morphologies accompanied by Rook's telemetry waveforms. Explainer segments featured Dr. Lynn holding a 3D print of a canine olfactory bulb. They predicted next-gen sniffer packs embedded in Canine units across North America. Harper returned to the Loft to find voicemail invitations exploding. Conferences on urban resilience. Art science residencies. A documentary crew vying for exclusive rights. Harper turned most down, focusing on OSU collaboration. Together they proposed Sentinel Project, an open-source platform marrying canine olfactometry with airborne sensors. Designed for wildfire hotspot detection, chemical spill forecasting, even pandemic viral plume tracing. Funding agencies bit. Within 6 months, prototype field trials unspooled in Yakima orchards testing pesticide drift. In San Francisco's Mission District where aging Victorian homes sat atop Victorian pipes. In Houston's Petro Corridor analyzing benzene clouds after refinery flares. Rook led each demonstration. Sensor harness now slimmer. Fitted with carbon fiber frame and satellite uplink. Harper documented journeys with charcoal and drone video. Layering sketches over flight map prints. A gallery in Soho offered a solo show titled Vectors of Invisible Storms. The opening drew critics expecting abstract motifs. But they found immersive rooms. Walls draped in translucent silicone printed with real plume data in UV-responsive ink. Visitors wore headsets piping faint mercaptan or cherry ester, safe concentrations, while surround audio remixed Rook's breathing and urban sirens into cinematic soundscapes. Reviews called it olfactory cubism and visual empathy for the unseen. Yet amid acclaim, the duo clung to evening rituals, quiet walks under Burnside Bridge. Rook sniffing river musks while Harper mused over new mediums, maybe sculptures whose surfaces changed texture when exposed to trace odorous compounds. A tactile alarm for low-vision occupants. They jotted notes by lamplight. Life's pulse quickened again one summer dawn when Dr. Lynn phoned from Geneva. Breathless, The International Energy Agency requested Sentinel attendance at a climate summit demonstration of methane leak abatement. Could Rook fly to Switzerland? Harper hesitated, long flights. Stress. But OSU's vet team offered sedation protocols. Business class cabin with canine support modules. Harper consulted Rook, who responded by trotting to the front door at the mention of trip. Zurich welcomed them with alpine lilac and punctual trains. At the conference center, energy ministers and tech CEOs jostled to watch a dog in a harness stroll mock pipeline mazes. Rook pinpointed micro-leaks humans couldn't smell even when ammonia tracer dye hissed visible. Harper explained how art-guided interface design, color gradients chosen for synesthetic clarity. Sensor UI grounded in emotional palettes to spur action. Delegates applauded. Investment pledges tallied in elusive billions. On a rare free afternoon they wandered Old Town's cobbled lanes. Rook paused at a bakery. Inhaling raisin-scented buns, a little girl approached, asked in halting English if she could pet the brave dog. Harper nodded. The child's mother whispered she feared dogs since a childhood bite. But seeing Rook on television changed perceptions. Harper knelt, telling the girl in gentle cadence how Rook once lived on broken concrete dreaming of kindness. The girl stroked his ears while Rook grumbled a satisfied bass note. Somewhere above, church bells chimed across the limit like silver wagons. The summit's closing plenary climaxed with footage of satellite-tracked leaks reduced nearly 60% using Sentinel prototypes across pilot sites. A standing ovation rose, not for policy language but for the Pitbull trotting onto stage beside Harper. Tail-swishing stadium air, Harper whispered to Rook, "You smell history shifting?" He yawned, unperturbed. Back in Portland, the Loft morphed again. Harper converted a corner into the scent studio. Modular rigs for testing olfactory sensors. Shelves of rare aroma isolates from ambergris to petrichor synthetics. Rook served as quality controller, if a compound strayed from spec. His nose flagged it before any gas chromatograph. But all stories arc. One unforeseen dusk, Harper discovered a faint limp in Rook's left foreleg. Radiographs revealed bone degeneration, likely early osteoarthritis aggravated by years of quick-turn maneuvers on concrete. The vet recommended anti-inflammatory regimen and moderated exercise. Maybe partial retirement from high-intensity field deployments. Harper's throat thickened. The world still needed Rook. But Rook's body spoke quietly of limits. So Harper pivoted. They began training a cohort of shelter-rescued pit bulls. Shepherds. Mixed breeds. Selecting for olfactory acuity. Resilience. Handler empathy. Rook became mentor, demonstrating leash manners and scent indication freezes. His limp became imperceptible in slow deliberative strides down training lanes lined with perforated scent canisters. Young dogs watched, imitated, eventually forged their own styles. First graduates deployed to Louisiana chemical facilities, to Tokyo subway ventilation studies, even to Venezuelan oil fields where satellite coverage lagged. Each wore harness patch reading Rook class. The media tried to latch on to the notion of a canine dynasty. But Harper framed it differently in interviews. Rook isn't a mascot. He's proof that instinct plus trust can rewrite safety protocols. Every new dog is a co-author. Rook's official retirement ceremony took place at Fire Station 7 on the same drilled tower yard where Harper had first received the medal. Cadets lined both sides of a red-carpeted hose bed, forming an honor guard. Alsop pinned a gold-edged star onto the dog's faded crimson medallion. Re-engraved with the years of service, 2025 to 2032. A brass band of off-duty musicians played "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," slow jazz version. Rook stood calm, ears flicking at trumpets, allowing a final salute before trotting to Harper's side. Ceremony concluded in his mind. Night settled with marine layer fog. Harper and Rook climbed to the roof of their building, where wind chimes fashioned from cut copper pipe, leftovers from the lethal stove elbow, sang metallic lullabies. Harper gazed over city lights, each sodium halo a memory node. A hush belonged to them here. But upholstery of sirens remained faint. City heartbeat reminding they were not finished. Only changing tempos. Harper whispered that new sensors using organic biofilm modeled after Rook's nasal epithelia were in prototype. Able to detect parts per trillion plumes. Rook yawned, leaning weight gently against Harper's leg. A silent benediction. Far below, a Max light rail bell clanged. Above, planes stitched arcs beyond cloud cover, carrying other stories. Some winters later, after Rook's world narrowed to park strolls and sofa sprawl under sun puddles, a cold snap ruptured another forgotten pipe, but this time, one of Rook's protégés, a lanky brindle named Echo, flagged the leak early inside a suburban daycare. Parents evacuated before children knew danger. Media still referenced Atlas or Rook, but a new generation of dogs, harnesses agleam, handled business with methodical grace. It was not a passing of torch but multiplication of flame. At 13, Rook slept deeper, dreamed longer. He twitched paws when thunderstorms massaged electrical scent into air, but he no longer woke the whole house. Harper learned to read the quiet hush of his breathing, how to be alert himself. One crisp evening Rook failed to greet at the door. Harper found him curled beside the workbench where sensor prototypes glowed amber. He lay as if napping. Muzzle rested on an aged crimson medallion. His heart had slowed in sleep and simply chosen stillness. Harper wept until dawn, brush strokes pooling like rain. They buried Rook beneath a cedar sapling on a slope near the same levee park Atlas once faced. Firefighters, researchers, artists, senators flown in from D.C., children with patched knee jeans gathered. Dr. Lin spoke of neuronal firing map revelations. Alsop recalled the alley plume. Harper could say nothing at first. Then finally, he taught us to smell the future so it wouldn't burn. The crowd echoed amen in tears and nods. Years rolled. Rook's cedar tree thickened. Sentinel became global standard. Oil majors installed Canine AI hybrid patrol units across deserts and oceans. Harper directed a foundation funding shelter dog olfactory scholarships, tuition paid in treats and forever homes. In Portland's Museum of Science and Industry, a permanent hall, the Invisible Storms Gallery, led visitors through an interactive gas plume maze ending at a life-size bronze of Rook poised mid-sniff. Under its paw, a button emitted faint mercaptan, ambient lights shifted, guiding guests to safe exit. Children giggled, adults inhaled cautiously. Everyone left with memory etched deeper than fear. Trust the unseen warnings. And on certain late February nights when drizzle sheathed street lamps and the bakery down the block perfumed air with raisin buns, Harper felt, for a fleeting inhalation, that Rook trotted beside, scanning currents. In that breath Harper could close eyes and glimpse again the mercy inside a dog's insistence. That stubborn pull from sofa to safety. That gift of sense sharpened by suffering then offered without reservation. The world still pulsed with hidden dangers. But it also rang with living songs of those who listened, who acted, who remade catastrophe into catalyst. The scent of winter remained silent. Yet millions now knew how to hear it. 22 winters after a half-starved Pitbull first lifted his head in a downtown loft and caught the phantom odor of catastrophe. Portland's skyline shimmered as if dusted with crushed quartz. The city had grown upward and outward, light rail veins pulsed neon beneath lattices of pedestrian skyways. Riverfront warehouses had morphed into carbon-positive greenhouses, and the burnished steel of a new seismic-resilient bridge stitched both sides of the Willamette together like a confident signature. Yet some rhythms endured. Rain still composed its percussion on copper gutters. Gulls still wheeled over market stalls hawking cardamom-cured salmon. And every late February the breeze still tasted faintly of snow that rarely fell. In a conference suite on the 38th floor of the Cascadia Nexus building, Harper Kincaid, hair silver at the temples, palms still flecked with charcoal, stood before a curved glass wall surveying the river's serpentine glitter. The Sentinel Foundation's annual summit opened within the hour, and delegates had flown from 6 continents. Shepherding patents, field data, and rescue dog trainees wearing harnesses spun from tensile plant fiber. Outside the auditorium doors, these dogs padded on polished marble beside their handlers, nostrils twitching at buffet aromas tucked under thermal cloches. Each bore a collared tag etched with a cedar branch in honor of Rook, whose sapling now towered into its own green cathedral on the hill above Levee Park. Harper traced finger arcs on the glass, mentally rehearsing keynote notes but inevitably drifting to memory. 22 years. The math felt gelatinous. Easy to push fingers through yet impossible to grasp. It began with a stove elbow hairline, a dog's shove, and widened into a cartography of scent and salvation mapping pipelines. Factory belts, wildfire smoke, even airborne pathogens. No metric truly captured the breadth. Insurance statistics struggled because the disaster never happened. Harper thought of the phrase saved lives or invisible lives. Whispered it. Let condensation ghost the words on the window. A gentle yip anchored the moment. Echo, Rook's first protégé, now gray-muzzled yet spry, stood by the door. Head cocked, as if sensing Harper's heartbeat accelerate. Harper knelt, smoothing Echo's brindle coat, inhaling the warm corn chip smell of a healthy dog. Old companions spoke a language of looks. Echoes said crowds gather and spotlights await. But storms of nerves do not impress me. Harper smiled. They entered the atrium together. Above them, kinetic sculptures rotated slowly. Ribbons of translucent silicone printed with global methane leak data in ultraviolet ink. As each ribbon passed under laser beams, the ink fluoresced, turning the air into a breathing galaxy. Delegates craned necks. Some held augmented olfaction badges that puffed micro-scent bursts synchronized to the visuals. Mercaptan, pine resin, ozone, training human noses to match what dogs parse effortlessly. The keynote began not with a speech but a hush. The house lights dimmed, leaving only the ribbon's ghostly glow. A single cello note rose from somewhere unseen. Deep and wood warm, soon braided by an oboe's silver filament. On the screen behind the stage, archival footage rolled. Grainy security cam of Rook nosing Harper awake. Then infrared of gas plume curling over hardwood like dark silk. Then the dash cam clip of fire engines rolling through rain. Sirens wailing soprano. The film accelerated. A montage of dogs across deserts. Tundra. Megacities. Tail tips blinking telemetry LED. Each bearing down on invisible threats. It ended on a still image. Rook beneath his cedar tree. Dappled light casting leafy constellations across aging fur. When the lights rose, Harper stood center stage. Echo seated in Sphinx posture by their side. There were no introductory jokes. No bullet point agenda. Harper spoke as if continuing a conversation paused seconds ago. We fashioned chimneys before we understood the sky. Harper said, voice steady as slow tide. We laid pipes before we understood the restless hunger of metal fatigue. We engineered wonders, yet left our most precious sensor, instinct, tethered by assumption. Tonight, look beside you. The experts in risk mitigation, environmental chemistry, artificial intelligence, they all wear 4 paws. Harper described a planet warming 2 degrees faster than initial climate models. A planet where aging infrastructure soaked in hotter summers and deeper flood cycles. Traditional leak stack imaging and acoustic sensors still missed micro fissures smaller than a honeybee's leg. Yet each fissure birthed molecules that stitched themselves into larger ruins. Dogs, some 80 million in domestic care worldwide, walk daily above those fissures. What if every walk harvested data? Sentinel's latest collar prototype, scarcely larger than a house key, sampled ambient air, hashed signal signatures, and offloaded anonymized leak alerts whenever the dog passed a public Wi-Fi node. City pilot programs turned morning strolls into rolling safety audits. Within 1 year, Portland reported residential gas emergency calls down 91%. Slides dissolved into real-time dashboards, colored topography of leak probability across London. Lagos, Sao Paulo. Dots pulsed where volunteer dog walkers logged early alerts. Overlay icons showed municipal crews dispatched. The audience rippled with soft exclamations. Some skeptical, most awed. Harper's voice slowed. The dogs are not devices. They're teachers. They loan us a sense we never evolved. Our obligation is reciprocity, housing, medical care, dignity, lifelong adoption. Every sensor sold funds spay and neuter clinics. Supports trauma recovery programs pairing veterans with scent dogs. The crowd murmured agreement. Echo chose this moment to stand, tail swishing a lazy arc. He looked toward the side wings. Ears forward. From the wings emerged a procession, 5 young dogs of varied breeds. Each guided by a teenage handler wearing the sentinel green scarf. They represented the first graduating class from the Foundation's Youth Handler Fellowship. a program empowering at-risk teens to train shelter dogs for olfactory service. Thunderous applause swelled, not politely but like rainfall exploding on roof tin. The ceremony pivoted to a live demonstration. Stagehands wheeled out 3 plexiglass chambers, each filled with a different odorant mixture. Only one chamber contained a compound chemically related to benzene, a silent assassin in petro-industrial zones. The handlers clipped harnesses to their dogs, whispered start cues. Echo watched, mentor eyes keen. The younger dogs sniffed the air swirling from floor vents. Within seconds 2 froze. Sat. The trained alert posture before chamber 3. The remaining dogs sniffed once more, then joined the alert. Sensors on their harnesses flashed green confirmation. Screens overhead displayed real-time algorithmic probability curves converging on chamber 3. Audience cheers echoed like surf crashing breakwater. A moment later subtle tremor stuttered through the building, nothing alarming. Just enough to flutter projector lenses. Portland lay along the Cascadia subduction zone. Micro-quakes whispered daily. The crowd barely reacted, yet Echo's head jerked. He inhaled sharply, nostrils flexing. Harper noticed, eyes narrowing. Echo issued a quiet woof, turned toward the auditorium's north doors. Harper followed gaze. HVAC ducts lined the ceiling there, feeding from rooftop solar-driven blowers. Harper excused themselves from the mic. Knelt by Echo. "What is it, old boy?" Echo nosed Harper's sleeve, then again faced the exit. The demonstration dogs paused, heads tilting in sympathetic curiosity. Delegates hushed. In the control booth, a stage manager's walkie sputtered. Maintenance just pinged a drop in turbine RPM on roof blower 4. Weird back pressure reading. Minutes earlier nothing flagged. Harper's pulse tightened. A kinked return flue? Maybe the micro-quake jolted fittings. The Sentinel system integrated building-less monitors via network but still required threshold minutes to issue alerts. Harper rose, addressed the auditorium. "Friends, please remain calm. We're going to step outside for a quick systems check." The dogs formed a living wedge. Handlers flanking. Harper and Echo at point. Doors swung open to corridor scent marked by fresh paint and brewing coffee. Echo's pace quickened. They reached a stairwell, climbed to the rooftop lobby. Rain had ceased. Wind licked heat domes of downtown. Across the tar-black expanse thrummed 4 silver ventilation stacks. A faint note of rotten eggs threaded the wind. Echo locked onto it, tail flagging. Facility engineers scrambled behind, lugging handheld micro-sniffers. They confirmed gas traces at Stack 4. The quake cracked a gasket on a recently installed supplementary heating line feeding demonstration labs. Concentration still far below LEL. But inside ductwork, friction drive fans could spark under the right confluence of dust and static. Engineers enacted lockout, vented lines, purged system, danger averted. 15 minutes later Harper returned to the auditorium. Delegates had already seen alerts flash to their phones. Rumor outran fact. But mood leaned exhilarated rather than fearful, a proof of concept delivered live by Echo. Harper retook the mic. "You just watched the system write its next paragraph. Fail-safe is no longer a mechanical term," Harper said. "It is behavioral, relational, reliant on trust between species." Echo wagged as if claiming a treat. The summit closed on a starlit terrace. Neon from river barges shimmered. Drones drifted overhead projecting slow-moving fragrance fields that glowed when inhaled by special lighting. Guests raised glasses of Oregon Pinot in toasts not just to innovation but to empathy as technology's backbone. Echo sprawled on heated stone tiles. Content. Later that night Harper walked alone through Levy Park. Moonlight silvered the cedar tree's needles. Beneath, the granite marker bore fresh lichen around the inscription Rook Carson. Faithful guardian. Harper knelt, fingertips brushing moss chilled by night dew. "You started a forest, friend," Harper whispered. Wind answered with cedar's balsamic hush. Footsteps behind signaled company. The teenage handlers approached, dogs in tow, eager for a tradition they'd only heard of, a midnight visit to the tree that seeded their program. Harper stepped back, letting the circle widen. Each teen placed a woven collar of jute and recycled copper wire at the trunk. Dogs sniffed, tails beating gentle rhythms. Fireflies, the result of a decades-old conservation reintroduction, winked among reeds by the river. Harper watched bioluminescent sparks mingle with LED glint from the collars. Old light and new light in respectful dance. Echo pressed against Harper's knee. The dog's age showed in stiff hip joints, but eyes remained wildfire bright. At sunrise, Harper brewed coffee in the loft that still echoed with original brick bones. The space had changed once more, benches of 3D printed polymer. Racks of prototype nose bots designed to learn odor from dogs via reinforcement loops. Echo dozed on a cushion near floor-to-ceiling windows. As daylight lapped over towers, Harper opened a news feed. Overnight, an Alaska drilling site leak detected by Husky Mix team. Evacuated. Contained. A flare stack explosion prevented. Lives invisible again. Harper closed the laptop, sipped coffee, and felt the quiet swell of purpose older than applause. The loft doorbell chimed. Outside stood a courier with a small crate punched by air holes. Adoption papers described a 6-month-old rescue from Kansas tornado rubble. Coat pattern reminiscent of storm clouds. Nose tested 3 deviations above mean sensitivity. The pup emerged, wobbly on big paws, sniffing citrine studio air. Echo lifted his head, grumbled a rumbling welcome, then nudged the newcomer toward Harper. Another beginning. Harper knelt, smiling at this growing constellation of sentinels. With every inhale, the studio filled with cedar memory. Paint vapor. City rain. The scent of winter no longer felt silent, it thrummed with paws on hardwood. With breath humming inside harness webcams. With the pulse of 1,000 small alarms singing before calamity could unfurl. The world, taught by dogs, had learned to listen. And somewhere far above, past the smell of ozone and distant sea salt, the wind carried forward a simple unfinished story. Forever looping. A snout to a pillow. A gasp of recognition. A race against time. A life preserved.